Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
COVID-19 case rates are spiking in San Diego County just as students return to school. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. So what do parents and caregivers need to know? KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco spoke to doctors and school officials.
San Diego County's COVID-19 positivity rate is close to 21%. It's the second highest ever recorded since the start of the pandemic. To help keep students safe, Rady Children's Hospital pediatric infectious disease doctor Edmund Milder says schools are practicing the following guidelines.
The things a school does is making sure you have good air quality, open windows and outdoors whenever possible, regular cleaning, disinfecting high-use surfaces, things like that. Frequent hand washing for students and staff.
He emphasizes the importance of practicing good respiratory etiquette.
Just being smart, coughing when you cough or sneeze, that you cover your cough or cold. Throw away the tissue if you have to blow your nose and wash your hands right afterwards.
Although masks are not mandatory in the San Diego Unified School District, they will be available for students and staff. Milder says masking continues to be a key measure for protection.
It can stop the spread, both for people that are infected, being able to pass it on as easily, and from people that aren't infected from getting the virus.
Milder advises parents to treat COVID-19 with the same precautions as other viruses like the flu and RSV, and recommends staying current with vaccine boosters. He says even if a child had COVID this summer, it only provides temporary immunity.
So if you've had a recent infection or vaccine, you're in a pretty good place. Nothing's 100%, but it'd be unlikely that you'd be able to get COVID-19 again. The further you get out from that infection or that vaccination, the more likely it is you could get it again.
Susan Barndollar heads the district's nursing and wellness department.
If your student has a fever and they are not feeling well with a fever, they should really stay home. For all other guidelines, if you have questions, you can look it up on the website, but you can also reach out to your health office. We have a health office, somebody in the health office 5 days a week between a nurse and a health tech, and they can help when you're not sure whether or not a student can come to school.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is calling on all school districts in the state to restrict cell phones in the classroom. LA Unified School District, the largest in the state, already has a policy of banning phones on campuses. It's going into effect in 2025. Locally, San Diego and Coronado Unified say cell phones have to be turned off during class time. Our media partner, KGTV, spoke to a parent who thinks it's a good idea.
I think it's a great call. Kids are here to learn. They're here to focus on their schoolwork, hang out and socialize with friends, and that at this point I don't think includes social media.
California State Schools Superintendent Tony Thurmond is issuing a similar call to limit phone use in school to cut down on distractions.
Tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 68. Not bad, but we are still talking about some low clouds there near the coast. So do yourself a favor. As always, take it easy. If you do have to head out a little bit later or even very early in the morning, you may run into some lowered visibility. Though we are tracking temperatures rising slightly in a few areas. We'll tell you who could see a slight warm up and when monsoonal moisture will make a return. Coming up.
The city of San Diego is considering charging a fee for trash collection from thousands of homeowners. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says officials want to hear from residents before bringing a proposal to the city council.
San Diegans living in apartments or condos usually pay private companies to pick up their trash and recycling. Most single-family homes get their trash picked up by the city for free. It's paid for with the same city funding that pays for things like police and fire departments, parks, and libraries.
People who spend money throughout the city, whether they're a homeowner or a renter, are paying sales tax. So you have a system in which essentially everyone is paying into it, but only a subset is receiving this free service from the city. 2
years ago, voters allowed the city to consider charging a fee for trash pickup. At the time, city budget analysts estimated that a monthly fee of $23 to $29 would cover the cost of the city's current level of service. Now, the city is holding open house meetings to get feedback on what else homeowners might want to see added, like more frequent recycling collection.
There's also a lot of interest in bulky item collection, so things like large sofas or dressers and how to handle those, whether it be some kind of voucher system where the department goes out to collect items directly from homes, or whether it be a community collection event where a large rollout container is provided to a neighborhood.
Bauer says the city will bring back cost estimates for those additional services in November for another set of public meetings. Then, early next year, they'll present options to city leaders. The city is holding open house meetings throughout the rest of the month and early September. There's also an online survey available at cleangreensd.org. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Former San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher is again turning to his abandoned state Senate campaign to pay for legal defense bills. KPBS's Scott Rodd reports the spending could test the boundaries of campaign finance rules.
Last March, Gracia Figueroa filed a lawsuit against Nathan Fletcher. The former San Diego Metropolitan Transit System employee alleged Fletcher sexually assaulted her when he was chairman of the agency. Fletcher denies the allegations. He dropped out of the race for a state Senate seat just days before the allegations surfaced. By that point, his campaign had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in contributions. More than a year later, he's still using money from his dormant campaign to pay for his legal defense in court. Campaign finance disclosures show his attorneys have billed the campaign for more than $500,000.
This is a somewhat legally murky area.
Jessica Levinson is a Loyola Law School professor and campaign finance expert. She says state election laws allow campaigns to spend money on matters reasonably related to political or legislative matters, but not on personal expenses.
So at the bottom of this, all of it depends on whether the lawsuit is filed against Nathan Fletcher as an individual or if it's filed against Nathan Fletcher because he's a candidate.
The California Fair Political Practices Commission enforces campaign finance laws. The FPPC received a complaint about Fletcher's spending and is considering whether it will open an investigation. Allison Hayward is a former FPPC commissioner. She says Fletcher's use of campaign contributions to pay his attorney's fees might be legal technically, but that doesn't mean it will sit well with voters.
It seems a little bait and switchy to me, and I think it does to a lot of people.
Fletcher's campaign attorney did not respond to requests for comment. The campaign previously argued that the lawsuit was only filed against Fletcher because he was running for office, and therefore the spending is legal. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
Wage theft is a crime that comes in many forms, and prosecutors in San Diego are planning a crackdown. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says one thing to watch out for is employers withholding sick days.
As of this year, all employees in California are entitled to 5 days or 40 hours of paid sick leave. It can be earned based on how much you work or offered all at once. Either way, employers have to tell their employees how much sick leave they've earned each time they get a paycheck. But a recent survey of more than 900 workers in San Diego County found fewer than half worked for a company that had made them aware of their sick leave. About a quarter didn't know their employer provided sick leave, and another quarter didn't get any sick leave at all. Even among those who had access to sick leave, some were discouraged or retaliated against for using it.
People have accrued sick days, but there's a sort of pervasive feeling in their workplace that if you take it, you'll get punished. You'll get given a worse shift, or you will, maybe even be fired. And those things are still illegal.
You can report wage theft to the State Labor Commissioner or the City or County Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
American realtors will soon be seeing a change in how they get paid to buy and sell homes. Beginning on August 17th, new rules will change the payment structure that has long been used, where home sellers typically pay a 5 or 6% commission. With the change, realtors have to enter a written agreement with home buyers before looking at properties together, making them responsible for paying their realtor's commission if a seller chooses not to. It's part of a $418 million settlement announced in March by the National Association of Realtors. Buying a new home can be a daunting task, and for many it can be out of reach. But if you're a military veteran, service member, or eligible family member, there are great programs out there to help. Patrick Cornell spoke to a mortgage professional about VA-backed home loans.
A great benefit for those who have served in the U.S. military is a VA home loan, but many either don't know the details or how to make it work for them. That's where doing your research and talking to the right professionals makes all the difference.
The very first thing I discuss with a VA home buyer is make sure they qualify.
Jeff Wittenbach is a military veteran who became a mortgage loan officer after retiring from the Navy. He focuses on VA loans and helping veterans achieve home ownership. There are many benefits for someone using a VA loan, including no down payment required for most borrowers, competitive interest rates, and it's a lifetime benefit. While most veterans will not need to have money for a down payment with this loan, you will definitely need cash to close.
So the state of California, I estimate about 2 to 2.5% for closing costs to close the loan. So that will cover your title, insurance, and escrow compounds. Anything needed to close the loan.
Wittenbach recommends these tips for all his clients. Do your own research, shop your own interest rate, know the difference between origination and buying points, know your credit score, and always work with VA savvy professionals.
If you're thinking about buying, just to talk to a mortgage professional, go over your DTI requirements, go over your paperwork, check assets and income, and get a game plan in place.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Patrick Cornell.
Journalist Bill Moyers once said, "The quality of democracy and the quality of journalism are deeply entwined." Well, local news outlets are on life support across the country, while democracy itself is on the ballot in the November presidential election. KPBS's Amitha Sharma is joining me now to discuss two bills in the California legislature that would require search engines and social media platforms to compensate outlets for accessing their news content. So, Amitha, tell me about the two bills.
Well, John, the first bill, AB 886, would mandate that a platform, whether social media or search engines, compensate news websites for accessing their stories, possibly through a set fee or an amount set by arbitration. The bill would require that 70% of those fees be used toward keeping news reporting jobs in California. The second Senate bill is 1327. This is an interesting one. It would force the big platforms to pay a tax for the data they collect on all of us users, and that tax money would be handed over to news organizations through a tax credit, again, for employing news reporters.
So, Amitha, the goal here is to throw a lifeline to journalism in the state. In fact, AB 886 is called the California Preservation Act. You've written extensively about the shrinking of local news coverage. So what are supporters of the bill hoping for here?
John, they're hoping it stems the bleeding. A little context. Since 2005, the United States has lost an average of 2 newspapers a week, according to researchers at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism. There are around 6,000 newspapers left in the country, and most of them are weeklies. And in California, here's a little bit more background on just how big a financial hit newspapers have taken over the past 10 years. Advertising at newspapers has plummeted 66%. Newsroom staff has sunk 44%. Now, John, you and I have been around for a long time. If you look at the UT 20 years ago, it had a newsroom of 400 people. Today, that staff has dwindled to about 50 staff. Look at what's happened to neighboring counties. Look at LA County. You see the Los Angeles Times, you see the Orange County Register, you see the Riverside Press Enterprise in Riverside County. Those papers are all mere shells of what they once were. The massive hit to newspapers has left vast swaths of news deserts for coverage so inadequate, it's irrelevant. This has huge implications for democracy. If you don't have journalists digging up the truth, shining a light on corruption, or as Scott Lewis at Voice of San Diego said to me recently, sharing the story of your community, you are out of touch with your own environment. You're left with no idea on what government is doing in your name. You don't know what business is doing, and you don't know how to vote. Studies show that voting dips when local news shrinks. This is why Brittany Barsotti, who is general counsel for the California News Publishers Association, says her organization is co-sponsoring SB 886.
We have a number of small publications that have come out in support, as well as labor. They voted unanimously to support AB 886 because of the requirements that the money go to journalism jobs. And as one of my colleagues there says, when management and labor are aligned on something, you should really pay attention. That means that this bill is going to be really critical.
Gosh, the statistics are just astonishing. What does Google have to say about all this?
Well, I reached out to a company spokesperson at Google, and he declined an interview, but he did send me a write-up on testimony on the issue offered by Google executive Jeff Erzadi to the California Senate Judiciary Committee in June. And in that testimony, he said, while Google shares the goal of preserving local news coverage, it believes SB 886 is the wrong approach and will have damaging consequences, and that Google's, quote, surfacing links to news content is not commercially lucrative for Google.
Okay, so what happens next?
Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks, who authored SB 886, is currently in negotiations on the bill, and her spokesperson told me this week that the bill will be heard in Senate Appropriations on Thursday. As for SB 1327, I don't really have an update other than I've been told that it's been voted out of the Senate and is in the Assembly now.
Such an important issue. Amitha Sharma, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, how the Harris-Walz ticket is trying to rally support from labor unions. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Outdoor dining patios that became popular during the pandemic may soon be gone from Chula Vista. The city is calling for the structures to be removed by Labor Day. Our media partner, KGTV, spoke to business owners who say the addition of the patios have helped keep their doors open. They plan to raise their concerns at a city council meeting tonight.
Hopefully we can find agreement to keep them while we talk policy about them. Maybe some have to be shrunk down a size or two, but we're willing to work with the city and want to do anything we can to help keep these.
The Chula Vista City Council says it's agreed to create a new subcommittee to look at the future of outdoor dining patios. Summer vacations are drawing to a close, and several school districts across the country head back to the classroom today or are already in session. Along with the new school year come new expenses. Julia Vargas Jones has more on that from Los Angeles.
School is back in session, and with it, big spending.
We're expecting consumers shopping for back to school and back to college to spend at near record amounts following last year's historic highs.
The National Retail Federation estimates families with children in elementary through high school plan to spend on average nearly $875 on school supplies, clothes, and electronics. The reason?
Electronics are a much bigger portion of back to school and college spending than they used to be. Kids these days, whether they're in elementary school, middle school, or high school, are usually attending class equipped with some sort of electronic device to aid in their learning.
It's even more expensive for college students who are expected to spend more than $1,300 on average for the upcoming school year. Elizabeth Moore, a shopping expert with Retail Minot, says there are ways to save.
One thing that parents should be aware of is their opportunity to stack sales with other discounts.
Moore also says start shopping early. This will help spread the cost and maximize the chances of finding a deal.
The data that we have from the record-breaking Amazon Prime Day this year shows that many parents actually started their back-to-school shopping with their midsummer sales all the way back in July.
Shopping smart can help stretch your dollar further this school year. Julia Vargas Jones, Los Angeles.
Students at Burbank Elementary School in Logan Heights are celebrating more than the start of a new school year. Today was the grand opening of their new soccer and baseball field. It includes a 16,500 square foot synthetic turf playfield with soccer striping. There's also a Little League-sized baseball diamond, batter's box, and a remotely operated scoreboard. And that's not all. They were joined by a San Diego Padre.
I was a kid too, you know, and I still remember a lot from when I was young, meeting up. Maybe couple guys that were famous, you know, guys that I looked up to while playing baseball. So definitely gives you a little bit of hope. Said I always want to be a school teacher, so I don't know what grade, I don't know what class. Didn't get to that point yet, but definitely enjoy being around kids, you know, and it's always good to give back for sure.
The new field replaces former basketball, volleyball, and tetherball courts, but there are all new courts now located at the center of campus. The project was funded by San Diego Unified's Capital Bond Improvement Program.
Well, let's start you off with your weather headlines. What you need to know as we head throughout the rest of the week. Drier through the late week, so we aren't necessarily forecasting too many pop-up thunder showers. A lot of that monsoonal moisture has shifted off towards our east, though we're hanging on to that steady warmth. You won't see too many changes when it comes to the mercury, though eventually as we head into next week, areas are going to see a slight rise. Now, we are tracking more monsoonal moisture to push back into the region here by next week, so we get a little bit of a break, but still something to be weather aware about as we do head into next week. We are tracking some spotty thunderstorms. Now, tonight across the region, Oceanside, you're at 63, San Diego 68. As we travel a little bit further east, well, Ramona, you're sitting at 59. Borrego Springs, not bad for this time of year, dropping down to a low of 77, and Mount Laguna at 64. Though we do have some problems there through parts of Riverside County. We do have a few air quality alerts out through the deserts. That does include La Quinta and Palm Springs. Though further south, we aren't necessarily tracking too many problems, but we do have some blowing dust issues that goes until Wednesday morning. As for Wednesday, high pressure still in charge here across the southwest for the most part. And where our highs go, it's spectacular along the coast. Oceanside, you're at 83, San Diego 78. Now, Borrego Springs staying in the triple digits, of course, but at least we're not in the triple digit teens, so something to be grateful for. Mount Laguna at 74. Now, if we take a look at these next 5 days along the coast, you will start to see that humidity creep up as we head into the weekend. We'll start to feel a little bit more in the way of that monsoonal moisture pushing back into the area as well, mostly going to be impacting areas inland and through the mountains and the deserts. For areas further inland, highs are going to be in the 90s here over the next few days, dropping down to 87. Not much, still hanging on to that warmth through the weekend, though highs in the mountains going to be ranging in the mid-70s. We could see a few spotty thunderstorms, but most of the area is going to be remaining dry and rather pleasant. Though in the deserts, highs, rinse and repeat, day in and day out, going to be staying right around 105 to 110. So overall, not terrible, still going to be hot. So please make sure, of course, you're taking care of yourself in the heat. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
In 2019, Renee Westbrook won Best Solo Performer for her San Diego International Fringe Festival show, Shelter. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando says you can head to LA this Friday to catch a new performance of the compassionate exploration of homelessness.
Renee Westbrook found herself homeless in 2009. She took that experience and turned it into the play Shelter when she was in grad school at San Diego State University in 2016.
Just walk, Davina. You can do this. Just put one foot in front of the other. You can, please, you can do this. You're college educated. You have a degree in a storage unit that's about to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. You can do this. I can't do it. I can't do it, God. I'm not going to make it. Please help me.
Although she didn't consider herself an actress, she took on the multiple characters in the play to create a deeply affecting one-woman show.
I wanted it to be about the various definitions of shelter. The different characters have their own meaning of what shelter means. To Davina Gray, the main character, it's a home, a roof. To Lazarus, it's nobody's going to ever hurt me again. That's his shelter, his karate.
I know what loan is. Your loan is shelter like you think. Just because I ain't got no roof over my head don't mean I ain't got no shelter. This my shelter, my karate, my shelter.
That's one of the things that I wanted to just express, is that contemporary homelessness as well has a deep meaning for everyone, because so many people are experiencing it now. But primarily I wanted to get out there the various definitions of what shelter is, because we all have different ideas of what it should be.
Now come on board now. Welcome to the Homeless Express. You know you can't live out there without an address, right? Now come on now. Come on in, I'm the ambassador.
Westbrook will be performing her one-woman play Shelter this Friday at the Bellevue Community Presbyterian Church in Los Angeles. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. KPBS Midday Edition will have a preview of next week's Democratic National Convention. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.